This is my first build video, the Stamina Templar for the Deadlands DLC on Elder Scrolls Online. We're going to be looking at the skills, rotation and gear setup we use, how to set it up to get the most damage, look at the damage that we got up to 108k on the trial dummy, and how you can go about getting the gear and setting this up. Stamina Templar has always been a strong class, but it took a bit of a hit with some of the recent updates, so it's good to get it back doing some big damage. Let's have a look. Let's take a look at the stats. We've got just shy of 6.5k weapon damage, 63.4% weapon critical, and over 2000 stamina recovery thanks to the sustained by suffering passive that we get with the vampire bite, using a bit of the cheese there. 64 points in stamina, the lava foot soup and salt rice food for the dummy. Like I say, we've got the bite so we can get that extra sustain, and we're using the thief mundus stone for that extra bit of crit chance. In terms of race, I have picked Dark Elf, partly because they're really strong, probably the best in set for stamina, but also because I use this as a Magplar as well, so we get the magicka and stamina from the stats there, as well as the weapon and spell damage from the rumination passive. And if you are making it from scratch as well, it is nice in the Ashlander passive to get our dual wield 15% XP boost as well. So if you're making it from scratch, it's a bit less. In terms of gear, we're using the Blackrose Daggers front bar. We've got the Nirn honed main hand with a flame damage glyph and a charged off hand with a poison damage glyph. Using that to get the deadly cloak to proc spectral cloak. Doesn't matter which way around you've got the glyphs as long as they're on there, but Nirn honed does have to be your main hand. In the Backbar, we've got our Maesltrom Greatsword infused with a weapon damage enchant. This now outperforms the Maesltrom bow using the bleed that you get from Merciless Charge. Really powerful this patch. The bow will still work, but will do a bit less DPS than the Greatsword does. Perfected to be even better. I've not got it yet, so I'm stuck with this one at the minute. In terms of monster set, we've got Kjalnars Nightmare from Vet Unhallowed Grave in light, both divines with stamina enchants. Light for the penetration passive from the light armor skill line, really powerful, especially when it crits, although you can only have one of you using this in content, so if someone else is using it, Velodreth or Stormfist or something like that. We've got Relequens, all divines, all medium, 4 pieces on the body, 1 on the jewellery. Really powerful set, still the best in set for stamina, 4 on the body, 1 on the jewels. The Harpooner's Wading Kilt for that massive crit damage and crit chance buff, and then 2 pieces of crit chance jewellery, bloodthirsty with weapon damage and chance. I've gone for Alkosh here, but advancing your Keeler would be a good option as well, because then you can get it gold from trials instead of having to gold it yourself and save yourself a bit of money. But there is the option of Briarheart from Overland or Kraglens Howl from Dungeons as well. On to our skills. On the front bar, we've got Deadly Cloak. We're going to be keeping this up as much as we can to get our Spectral Cloak buff to give us that 6% extra damage. It also gives us evasion, which is good in content to reduce the damage that we take from AoE attacks. Camo Hunter, our source of minor berserk, in case we're not running Kimras and we might not have that with someone on us in group, but it's also a fighter's guild skill that will give us that weapon and spell damage passive as well to make us hit a little bit harder. Power of the Light, copying our damage. We're keeping this up throughout the rotation to keep up minor breach and to give us that little bit extra burst from the damage that we do to make sure that we're keeping those DPS numbers up. Handy in content, like I say, for minor breach as well if the tank isn't pierce armoring everything. As well as that, we've got Barbed Trap, which we're using to keep up minor force, a little bit of a bleed, and it's also another fighter's guild skill just to give us that little bit extra damage. Biting Jabs, which is our main spammable. Great cleave damage, really strong spammable. Takes a little bit of getting used to with the weave timing, because obviously it is a bit of a longer cast time compared to other skills. But this is also really handy because it will proc one of our passives. So if we go to the Adrian Spear skill line, it will give us the 10% crit damage from that, and also the Burning Light passive. 4 jabs will be like 4 rapid strikes and give us that little bit of extra physical damage on top for free as well. On the ultimate, we've got Flawless Dawnbreaker. We're only going to be casting this at execute, but it's still there for our Fighters Guild passives as well, just that little bit of extra damage on the front bar. You will be casting this from 30% onwards instead of Meteor. On our back bar, we've got Stampede to keep up the Merciless Charge bleed from our Maesltrom Greatsword. Ritual of Retribution, costs magicka, really strong stats because it scales with our offensive stats. Nice for our sustain as well. Also gives our allies in content an opportunity to heal as well. Camo Hunter again for the Berserk on the back bar and the Fighters Guild passives. A random Fighters Guild skill, doesn't matter which one this is. And then another Adrian Spear skill on the back. I've stuck jabs on. for now, but in content you could put on Sun Shield to give you that little bit more survivability should you need it. It's just there to get us that 10% crit damage there. And our ultimate will be Shooting Star. Mage's Guild grind, I know, but it does give us, if we can keep the enemy in every tick of the dot, a really strong ultimate to cast that does a lot of damage. You can put Dawnbreaker here, or you know, Sweep or something like that, but it will do less damage. Onto the passives now. So we've got Adric Spear Scholar. We need all of these. We need a 10% crit damage from our Piercing Spear. The amount of protection is really nice for casting in content. Making sure we take less damage on my jab. Obviously our Burning Light, super important. And Balanced Warrior is also nice for extra weapon and spell damage and a bit more physical spell resistance to make us a bit less squishy. All four of those super important. In our Dawn's Wrath, you don't really need this one, to be honest. Maybe if you're using the shield, I don't know why I've got that there. This one's super important. Every time we cast the ability, we get free ultimate. Super nice when we're casting Power of the Light to give us that little bit more ultimate generation. Minor Sorcery, this is our group utility on the Templar as a whole. So casting Power of the Light again gives our whole group Minor Sorcery. And Restoring Spirit, reducing the cost of our ability, is helpful to sustain. These last ones are just sort of nice to have really in content. They're not really going to do anything on the dummy, but buy them just when you're running actual content itself. Our 2-hand passives, you want all of them just in case. Obviously on the dummy you won't be doing sort of cleave with the light attacks or the heavy attacks, but a super important one's a heavy weapon to get the bonus from our sword. They'll reduce cost of stamina abilities, and then the rest of them are just sort of nice to have in content rather than on the dummy itself. Still get all of them though. I'd still buy all the passives in there. On our dual wield, again, same again. We definitely want Slaughter to increase our damage done with Deadly Cloak when we're getting towards Execute. As well as that, we also want Dual Wield Expert to get that extra buff from our offhand to whether it's spell damage. The reduced cost to make Deadly Cloak a bit cheaper. This is handy in content, but won't do anything on the dummy because obviously you can't stun, immobilize, disorientate or silence bosses. But then the super important one is Twin Blade and Blunt, which makes daggers super powerful on any character for the extra crit. Light armor passives, you definitely want the bottom two for the penetration, and then also medium armor, you want dexterity and agility for the damage. Fighters Guild, you want Slayer and Skill Tracker. Then Mages Guild, the bottom three, because we're not casting any abilities that actually cost magicka, but we do want the buff to our Meteor. All the Undaunted passives, and then obviously all of our racial passives as well, and medicinal use out of the alchemy skill line to keep our potion buff up as well. For CP slottables, a lot of these will be different depending on content or preference. I'm lazy, so I put nothing in the green tree here, but rationer and liquid efficiency I definitely use to make your food and pot bill lower. And then probably the ones that give you extra gold as well, because it's always nice to be able to buy all that stuff. For the blue tree, these are going to stay the same. So I experimented with lots of different combinations that involve backstabber and fighting finesse. But your ultimate combination here on a Templar is Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, Biting Aura, and Thaumaturge. This will give you the strongest results. And can be used in all contents. You're not going to need to swap out Backstabber and Sunspire and things like that. I've not found any situation on the Stamplar where these four hasn't been the highest hitting combination. On the red tree, a lot of this again will change in content, but two that you definitely want are Sustained by Suffering to get you that extra sustain from the Vampire Bite, and Rejuvenation to just give you that extra bit of sustain as well. Fortified and Boundless Vitality, that might change out to like a block passive or slippery depending on the content that you're doing, but you definitely want the top two for sure. So in terms of damage, the highest I've managed to make in this video is 108k on the trial dummy, but I am on some terrible internet at the minute visiting some family, so I reckon there is 110k in there somewhere, and that is using a majorly static rotation with just dynamic trap casts in there, which we'll have a look at now. Starting our rotation, we'll pop our potion, we'll hit trap, go to our back bar, and hit Meteor, go back to our front bar and start our light weaving with Power of the Light, back bar, Stampede, Ritual of Retribution, Deadly Cloak, 2 jabs, Power of the Light, 4 jabs, Power of the Light. From there, our rotation will repeat, Stampede, Ritual of Retribution, Deadly Cloak, 2 jabs, Power of the Light, 4 jabs, Power of the Light. The only bit that changes is you'll drop a jab for a trap as you need to recast it, and you'll also drop a jab for your ultimate as it's ready. So you can see here, if I just get my Kilt stats back up. see here, I like that super important because they can use light attacks, laying keep and we'll out of with that power of the light. Try and cast your Meteor so that it will get copied by Power of the Light, because there is a little bit of downtime, so try not to land your ultimates in that. And you will swap your to Dawnbreaker around about 30% instead of Meteor and keep casting it from there. Static rotation and a good intro to dynamic as well, as we're keeping up trap dynamically, but simple to follow in content with mechanics going on to get good damage. So just one final thing that I mentioned is at the start I said I had the sustain by suffering buff to my sustain. Now this is a little bit of cheekiness that we can use to sort of get extra magicka stamina recovery in content and on the dummy, just to make sure that on a mag character, for example, we can keep our bar saves proccing a lot more powerfully because having our magicka low but sustaining it, or in this case allowing us to use some expensive skills on a stamina character and not run out of stamina and use the 2 light and sustain it quite comfortably to get the penetration passive. Now to do this, like I mentioned, you are going to need a vampire bite. So if we have a look at my debuffs here, we can see I've got this Noxophilic, Sanguivioria, however Jesus you say that, but it doesn't proc straight away. So on my character sheet at the minute we can see I've got 1316 stamina recovery, which is just off of my food. Now if I use a pot with a negative effect on it, say for example hindering or spell breach or something like that, I only have to use this once when I enter an instance, and then we can see straight away my stamina recovery shoots up even though I've not used another stamina pot that only had a negative effect on it. If for example you're passing, you use that when you're walking your house, or in a trial context, say you're running Cloud Rest, for example, you'd pop your potion as you get onto the bridge. In Asylum Sanctorum when you go through the front door, but you don't need to use it every potion, it's just at the start of a new instance, and that way you can get that extra little bit of sustain to keep you up in content, let you use some more expensive skills and rotations, or on your magicka characters to keep your magicka really low to really get the most out of Barse. And that is the Stamina Templar build for the Deadlands DLC. Thank you, beautiful people, for checking it out. I'm really new at this point to the content creation and support that I'm getting over on Twitch, and hopefully that will start to get here, that I'm starting actually making content and not sat there doing nothing. It's been really good. I've got a stinking cold making this, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds completely horrible. It will get better in future videos. Feel free to go check me out on Twitch and to throw a like and subscribe as this has been helpful. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.